How's it, peeps?
My name is Jeff.
And welcome to another episode of Something Amazing. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look, or actually it's a showdown between Imac and PC. And we're going to be looking at how much would it cost in South Africa to build a PC equivalent of an Imac Pro. So let's get into it. So yeah, at Something Amazing, I am basically a PC fanatic, and obviously I have here the Pump My PC build, which was covered in previous episodes. And the other guy on the channel is Kurakesh, and he's a massive Apple fan. So obviously we clash heads a lot of the times discussing like which is better. And if you're an Apple fan, you probably have had multiple wet dreams about owning an iMac Pro.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
So iMac Pro is a new iMac that's out from Apple, and it usually resales in South Africa for about 84,000 Rand. What are you getting for that, you may ask? So basically you're getting a 27-inch 5K Retina display, which actually came out in the previous iMac version. And you're getting an Intel Xeon processor, which is a 3.2 gigahertz processor, which has a boost up to 4.2 gigahertz, and it is an 8-core processor. Now what makes that processor so special is that it actually has 19 megabytes of cache. So if I have to put cache,
catch me outside, how about that?
To explain cache simply, it's memory that's close to the CPU that stores temporary information from the RAM that the CPU can access quickly. So the higher amount of cache you have, the faster your CPU will be able to react. So that's what makes a computer quick on its own. It also has 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM at 266 megahertz. It has a 1 terabyte SSD, but it's not a single terabyte unit. It's actually two 512 gigabyte SSDs that have been made by Apple for the iMac. The GPU in the iMac Pro is a Radeon Pro Vega 56, and that's an 8 gigabyte graphics card. And the other thing about it is it has 4 USB 3.0 ports, and it has 4 Thunderbolt 3 USB Type-C ports. So people have been raving on the internet, on YouTube, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of reviews of the iMac Pro. The question is, can we, here in South Africa especially, build a PC equivalent of that? So for many years, Intel was the go-to processor, and of late, especially with the launch of the AMD Threadripper, things changed, because that came in at a very good price point with very competitive figures in terms of processing power. So yeah, it's Something Amazing. We looked at some products that are sold locally, and we wanted to compare what would the cost be of us building one or building a PC that would match the iMac Pro that's selling for 84,000 Rand. So basically, the first and the most important thing is the monitor. The one big selling point of the iMac Pro is that it has a 5K Retina display. So we chose, you don't get many 5K PC monitors out there. So the one we chose was the Asus 4K 165 Hz monitor, gaming monitor. That's also a 24-inch monitor. And that usually sells for around 14,000 Rand. Right? And the next thing we chose was, for our processor, we went with the AMD Threadripper. So Threadripper, just came out with their record-breaking Threadripper 2, but we'll cover that hopefully in a future episode. But the older Threadripper, the 1900X, is an 8-core 16-thread processor, which is very close to what's in the Imac Pro, the Xeon processor, which is and the Threadripper has a 3 gigahertz base clock. It has boost up to 4 gigahertz, and whereas the Imac has 19 megabytes of cache, this has 20 megabytes of cache. So it's very close to one another. The one benefit of having a Threadripper though is that you can overclock it. So if you have efficient cooling, etc., you can boost that base clock speeds up to about 4.1 gigahertz, depending on what you're running in your system. The next thing is the motherboard. So Apple obviously makes their own motherboards, and the motherboard that we chose or thought that we would use in a build, let me just say, is the Asus X399 Prime motherboard, which sells for around 4,500 Rand. So that motherboard basically has a quad channel as well, which what the iMac Pro has. It has quad channel memory. So this motherboard allows you to run quad channel memory. For cooling of the Threadripper, we chose the EVGA all-in-one liquid cooler. That usually sells for around 2,300 Rand. And that's one of your high-end all-in-one liquid coolers that you can find. But there's multiple ways of doing your cooling. You can run big fans. There's nitrogen cooling or custom liquid cooling setups. But we just were choosing, like, if we had to buy parts and just put them together, what would we choose? For RAM, we went with the same 32 gigs of RAM that the iMac has. And for that, we chose 4 gigabyte RAM sticks, and 8 of them are the 266 megahertz, the crucial RAM, and that worked out to around 5,600 Rand. For the SSD, because of the iMac has obviously a 1 terabyte SSD, now Samsung has the 1 terabyte 960 Pro. This is an extremely fast SSD. It's a M.2 NVMe. Oh, there's a tongue twister, that one. NVMe M.2 drive, and that basically has a read speed of about 3.5 gigabytes per second and a write speed of about 2.1 gigabytes per second, and that retails roughly around 8,400 Rand. These aren't exact prices, obviously these are averages. We looked at a few websites locally and we saw what the average price range, and we rounded it off. Okay, the next thing is the Radeon Pro Vega 56 graphics card. That usually sells for about 10,000 Rand. However, thinking about that, if you are in that price bracket, you could spend a little bit more and you could probably get a 1080 Ti, an 11 gig DDR5 graphics card. But we just wanted to compare apples with apples here. So the iMac comes with a wireless keyboard and mouse, obviously. So we chose the Logitech MK710. There's a lot of options out there on the market. Some that are very expensive and some that are very cheap. But the one that we chose costs around 1,200 Rand, just to compare. And obviously the iMac comes with a full HD 1080p webcam. So we chose to put a 4K webcam on the PC build, which costs around 2,700 Rand. Now, if you have to add all of that up, one thing, sorry, I forgot, is that something that people usually forget is that Apple comes with an operating system, software basically, and so you would also need something like Windows. So Windows 64-bit Pro costs around 2,500 Rand. So we're obviously adding that into the cost as well. So the next important thing you're going to need is a power supply. So something to run, and it all depends also on what components you're going to be using in your system. But you're going to be looking for around an 850 watt to 1,000 watt power supply, obviously a gold rated one. And that's going to set you back around 2,000, 2,500 Rand, depending on the brand, depending on what you choose, etc., etc. The next thing is you're going to put, or the last thing is you're going to need something to put all of this in. And cases, this way it varies. You got cases as cheap as 700 Rand and cases as expensive as 15,000 Rand. But it all comes down to the end user, what basically tickles your fancy, or what you like, or how do you want to customize your system. But the case that we chose obviously is a cooler, or like one that we would go for, actually, not that we chose, because we don't have a Threadripper or iMac Pro. But the thing is, you're looking like a Cooler Master H500p mesh case, which costs around 2,500 Rand. But now if you have to add up all these components, you're going to come to an amount of about 62,000 Rand. So in essence, you can build a PC for about 22,000 Rand less. So most gamers out there will tell you, oh, it's way cheaper to build a PC. But let's look at the pros and cons. The one thing about the Apple is that it has a design that appeals to a lot of people. A lot of people love the slim, sleek design of the Apple. The second thing, it's very portable. You literally have one cable that you plug in, which is your power cable, and you're good to go. And it's you can easily move your iMac anywhere around with you. With a PC, especially if you're doing a big tower case like the H500p, it's a difficult thing to move around, and then obviously disconnecting all the cables and everything that's attached to it. So that's something to think about. The second thing is that a lot of people won't opt to build their own PC. They rather go and buy one, or they're too scared to try and build one. So that has to be taken into consideration as well. However, if you buy these components, I'm sure you can find somebody that's going to build a PC for you and obviously charge you an amount of money, but it's still going to be a big saving from purchasing an iMac Pro. So that's also something to think about. The next thing is, Apple has come under a lot of flack recently. If you looked on the internet, they've got a lot of thermal throttling, especially on the iMac Pro and on the new MacBook Pro. So the main thing about that is, if you have to look at the iMac Pro, if you look at the back of the screen, where they used to have the panel for you to upgrade your memory slots, that's now the exhaust vent. And the problem with that is that it blows the hot air out onto the stand that the iMac sits on, and that comes back down, and underneath the screen is basically the intake ports. So basically the computer in essence can be sucking up the hot air that it's expelling out. But they've seen a lot of thermal throttling, and that's been an issue. However, the iMac Pro does have an upgraded cooling system, but it seems to throttle still. And that's where the advantage of a PC comes in. There's multiple cooling solutions out there, and you can choose a cooling solution depending on what you're going to be using the PC for, whether it be for high-end workflow, whether it be for gaming, etc. The next thing to look at, obviously, is that some people would opt to go for Apple because of the Apple warranty and Apple after service. However, if you followed on YouTube, the Linus Tech Tips channels, the issues they had with their iMac, Apple couldn't even replace the screen. So it depends on the aftercare service and after sales service, but that may vary from country to country, and it will also vary from place to place within a country or shop to shop. And different people have had different experiences with that, in that regard, actually. So it all depends, but it's also an important thing to think about when purchasing one. The last thing I'd like to talk about is, one thing that people always compare is benchmarking, right? So they do gaming benchmarks, they do Cinebench benchmarks, they do your work and stuff type of benchmark test. But here's the thing, you can't really compare the two. And there's a reason I say that, is because if you look at the Apple with the thermal throttling that they're experiencing, from a gaming standpoint, you are going to get better results on a gaming built PC. On the other hand, I was having this discussion with Kuda, and there's something we realized. He has been using Premiere Pro and Adobe After Effects, which is what we use for editing, for a very long time. And if you look at their updates usually almost every time comes out when a new Apple product comes out. And you have to think about it, there's a reason behind it. Some software developers, obviously an Apple iMac Pro is going to be the same. if I buy an iMac Pro and Kuda buys an iMac Pro and Tom, Dick and Sally buys an iMac Pro, we all got the same hardware components. We all got the same system. So I think it's easier for software developers to develop software that's going to run optimally on those type of systems. And if you, with PCs, it becomes very difficult because there's so much of components out there on the market, and it varies from individual to individual, that it's difficult to develop the software in a sense that you can perfectly optimize somebody's system, because it varies so much from manufacturer to manufacturer. So that's something important to think about. And a case in point is like, if you look at some of the videos, or I've seen videos on YouTube where people try and edit raw red camera 8K footage or the C300 Canon RAW footage. Some people have difficulty playing back the footage within Premiere Pro on a purpose-built PC, whereas if they played it back on even a MacBook, it would play back smoothly. But then comes in the rendering. And so rendering and exporting, what we've seen, Kuda has the 5K Retina display iMac, and obviously I got the my PC build, and I can export much faster because I got the H500P case, and obviously a liquid cooler, etc., and it performs a lot better. So there's a lot of factors to take into consideration. So it's difficult to benchmark a gaming PC against Apple iMac, which is in essence a workstation. So what I'm trying to say is that it is much cheaper to build a PC with the same components that's in an iMac Pro, but you have to ask yourself, is it going to be better for you in terms, you have to ask, what are you using the computer for? Are you using it for productivity? Are you using it for primarily gaming? Do you want a warranty? What kind of support you're going to get from the software that you're using on your computer? So those are a lot of questions to ask yourself, and it's a very difficult thing to say, oh, this is the clear winner, because both of them, like I said, have pros and cons to them. Apple's, if I have an iMac Pro, like I said, and everybody else has one, our computers all look the same. If we all sit next to one another, everybody has the same PC. With gaming PCs or custom built PCs, you can customize this to the moon and back. You can do literally anything you want, from the color of the lights. Now you got addressable RGBs, even the choice of your color of your cooling liquid. I mean, the sky is the limit, and that's, I guess, where enthusiasts really like building a PC, because your personality and the things you like and the way you want to design your PC come through in your build, and that's what makes it different, or makes it stand out from the crowd. But anyway, let us know what your thoughts are. Which is better, Apple iMac, a custom built PC? This has been a debate that's gone on forever, but you have to ask yourself, what is it that you want? And let us know your thoughts, man. Hopefully in the future we'll get our hands on a Threadripper build, and we'll get our hands on an iMac Pro with time, and we can run some benchmark tests on them and let you know what those results are. But anyway, we'll see you next time, and see you in the next episode. Enjoy the rest of the week. Bye.
Step my money fast and go.